This is the fresh face of 4 hours of sleep talking to you. I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. I have a blog by the same name, and that's my name on Instagram. On Ravelry, I am mamatronic. Ravelry is a knitting website, and this is a knitting slash crochet slash whatever making things kind of podcast. I'm trying to make it as much of a conversation as I can. So when you talk back to me in the comments about anything I've discussed and answering any questions I ask, and I ask a lot of questions of you guys, it kind of helps shape what I talk about the next episode and makes it as much of a back and forth collaborative thing as possible. That's my goal. I don't have knitting friends to sit and knit with, so you guys are filling that void for me. And hopefully I can do that somewhat for you. So just be prepared. I'm your rambly friend who monopolizes the conversation. And I will definitely be your rambly friend today because I'm just not sleeping very much. I've had I think I aggravated something in my back when we were evacuating the animals a few months ago. Just big cages, and they're pretty heavy with 2 cats or whatever, a dog in them, and leaning over, putting them in the back of vehicles. It was just tough. I think that's what did it. So I'm seeing a chiropractor a few times, this week, and we'll see what comes of it. But basically, I don't have to bend over and do housework for a while. So, that's all good. Hopefully I'll sleep better tonight. So, let's see, where are we? You know how I talked about your goals and my goals for the new year in the last episode? And we all kind of shared the goal of using what we have rather than buying more, if possible. As much as possible. That's great. And then we had that same shared goal, most of us, that we wanted to finish what we had started, which is also good. That's so totally my goals, but I kind of scrapped that to work on some baby blankets for friends. And I just kind of accidentally made this sort of a year of the blanket. And I finished one actually this last week, and I recorded myself yesterday talking about it, but I didn't do the whole episode thing because I had to give it to my friend today. Her baby came early, and I was just like, okay, I want to try and knit a blanket in a week. So I scrapped my knitting idea that I was going to do a knitted blanket, and I went with a granny stripe, and I'll show the clip right now. There's these big sacks of multiple balls of yarn, I feel like, everywhere. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. So I realize that's the way it is when you're making a blanket, but I was glad to get one of them done. So I'll just tell you about it. This is Attic 24's Granny Stripe Blanket pattern, and I did it in Knit Picks Brava, which is an acrylic yarn, but it's washable for a baby. And the baby came early. This was going to be a knitted blanket, but I felt like a granny stripe would go much faster. It did, but I could have done it even faster had I been used to working with this kind of acrylic yarn. It does split, and my little crochet hook would go through the center of the strand almost every time. I was to right about, say, from here to here before I got the hang out of dealing with it, and it really did require a little more work and twerking and stuff with my wrists, but I got the groove, and I really did enjoy working on it. So my colors here are Dove Gray, which I needed 2 balls of. I only used 1 ball of the rest. I think this is Coral, and this is Seashell, and this is Silver. So I just started working, and I actually did run out of the silver, and I borrowed from another stash for blankets of Brava that I had, and just did some of this last little double stripe here. Anyhow, I really enjoyed working on it. I probably didn't do the greatest, neatest border. I don't really know how to do a border. By the time I get to it, I just want to fiddle. I don't want to read instructions, and crochet instructions just don't, they don't come as naturally to read as knitting. So I think maybe I just avoided it, and And I did that the last time I made a blanket. You know, I know you chain a few at the corner. And like here, this is single chain row. Well, then when I went to do these rows, I did clusters of triple crochet. And I did triple crochet clusters here. I did realize that for my scrappy blanket, I did double crochet clusters accidentally. I hadn't done it in so long, I forgot how to do it right. Anyway, I really enjoyed working on this. This is not traditional baby blanket colors. Maybe a little more Southwest than I meant for it to be. That's what it makes me think of. Desert kind of colors. But, you know, this is a big enough blanket. It's not going to be for baby days forever. I made it big enough that this little one could carry it around with her for years. Like my brother and I did our blankets. We would cover up with them on Saturday mornings while we watched cartoons. We might use them on our bed, over our bedspread. We played with them. We made forts with them. We played with our animals, made little tents and covered them. We would like put it over our head, like if it was cold, pull our knees up, put it over our head and cover completely, like with our feet holding the edges down, and we would watch cartoons through the holes in it, you know. So I wanted her little one to have something like that, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. I don't know, you know, like we each had one. That was it. Nowadays, everyone has so much of everything, which I get. I mean, we're that way too. I don't know how special it is, but it was special for me to work on it. So I really enjoyed working on that blanket, and I'm going to have detailed notes on how I did it beyond referring you to the Attic 24 pattern on my blog when I do the post for it, which I'm going to try to get up when I do this, upload this podcast episode. And did you notice I'm wearing my kind of repaired Sunset Highway? It's not as clingy. The body fits nice and loose, you know, from like the armpit down. I do think there's like gaps here in the armpit in the knitting, and I think that wasn't like that, but now that I've worn it some, it is, and I think it's because it has a slight, like, you know, the poncho swancho effect. I think it's got that low arms. I don't like that with a lightweight like this that's not made to totally like hang. I don't like that on this one. So now I know what to look for. Not really sure why. I'm seeing a lot of colorwork sweaters that way though, but they don't allow for the arm flail. So maybe that's not for me. But getting back to the blankets. So I did that worsted granny stripe. It's a nice size for a baby. That took a week. And I found that yarn super splitty. That was hard. I've been totally spoiled by my, where is it? My granny stripe blanket in wool. So this is for the Scrappy Blanket Make-Along that I'm doing with Andrea Jimenez. We're hosting that together. Now she's finished her blanket. I don't know if she's going to do any more, but it's just an ongoing whatever kind of knit along. And I'm doing a queen or full-sized scrappy blanket, and I'm not far along. I haven't touched it for a few weeks because I've been trying to finish projects and then also gifts. But you can see this is wool, and it's so much easier to knit. I mean, to crochet this. There's no splitting. However, as I look at it, I'm thinking I might not have done it the whole time, but this looks like these clusters are just double crochets, not triple crochet. So maybe I just started doing that up here when I started it back up, because these kind of look a little bigger than these. But anyway, if that's the case, I'll just keep doing whatever I did. I like that there's not a lot of gaps. These aren't big gaps between them. I like because it's very lightweight, so I like that it makes a more substantial fabric. It's a hashtag. I probably flashed it here. Scrappy Blanket Make Along. You can start on it anytime while we're doing it. Just use the hashtag. It's on Instagram, and it's so totally laid back. Any type of blanket, crochet, knit, whatever, just scrap focused. So that's scraps, and I've shown you before my magic cake. This won't be the whole blanket, obviously, because I'm making it so large, but this is going to get me quite far in it, and I don't know if you can see, there's just a real range of colors. As long as no two look gross and putrid next to each other, I'm good. Here and there, I add in some blue and green colors that I like that kind of go with my room. I have a wall painted something between these two colors, so I just like both of them, so I figure here and there I'll work in a row of that. So that's wool, and I'm loving it, and I really wish I could be working on it every day, but I'm feeling the need to work on another gift blanket that I'm doing for another baby. I'm going to do Lavanya Patricilla's Aquarian baby blanket, and this one is going to be in wool because this baby is going to live up north where it gets really cold. So I've just begun it. Let me show you what this pattern looks like in case you haven't seen it. I think Lavanya just had her baby. I really like that. It's kind of got a vintage look to me. And so it's a 4-color blanket. You hold one color all the way through, and then you stripe in your other 3 colors in your working brioche. So I'm going to do white as the background, and this couple didn't have like a color theme or anything, and neither did the other that I made the blanket for. So I asked, what would you like? Would you like neutrals? And that's exactly what the mom wanted, and she's so special to me. She's been a really wonderful friend to my daughter, and so she's special to me. I wanted to make something, you know, that they would like, and maybe if it's large enough and more neutral colored, it will be useful longer. I didn't think she would want something syrupy sweet pink or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just didn't think she would. So what I chose was Wool of the Andes Superwash. So it's still washable, but there's some more density and warmth to it. And so white is going to be the background color I hold the whole time. And then I'll do brioche with Dove Heather, Noble Heather, and Marble Heather. I think it's going to make a nice neutral blanket, and throwing this green in really helps because these were very close, and the other grays, you just wouldn't see any contrast for the brioche. So I liked the idea of throwing in one darker, more vivid color. And green is a nice, nice neutral color. I really like Noble Heather. I think that's a nice colorway. So I've just begun it. I have so much to show you guys. Basically, it's just the garter border, and I did the first row of brioche, or half of the first row. So it's just the 2 lightest colors together, but I can already tell I'm going to like it, and I think this is going to block out to a nice size, like about a 4-foot blanket. Probably my gauge will be a little looser than the pattern, but that works if I have enough yarn. So I'm excited to get going on that, and I haven't done brioche in a while, but I'm so proud. I started to look at Andrea Mowry's tutorial to refresh my memory, and then I was like, wait, I don't even have to do this. I can do this. And I did. I remembered how to do my barks and my burps, and I got it. So I'm really excited about that. The last blanket is, and I told you I was doing the traveling Afghan. Every time I reach in this bag of Brava, more skeins just fall apart. That's the thing. Like, wool kind of sticks to itself and it holds together, but I'm feeling a little anxious with all these sacks of blanket yarn everywhere, especially when just sitting there, this starts to like unravel itself. It's Brava again, and it's, you know, a really smooth, soft acrylic. So it's a nice quality, I think, acrylic. All the comments on Ravelry have been really good for this Brava, and I know they changed their makeup of the yarn several years ago, but everything I've read since then, people like it. So I think, yeah, I've got 3 different grays for my blanket. This is for me, for my living room, and these are like sort of my fancy color scheme, but you really can't see it because it's covered in various animal beds, mismatched throws to keep dog hair off the couch and chairs, to keep cats from clawing chairs. There's also shredded chairs that used to be these colors. And there's a wooba somewhere in there. But these are Dove, Silver Heather, Cobblestone Heather, and Tide Pool. And that's Knit Picks Brava. So the Traveling Afghan is a pattern or a collection of blanket square patterns that is hosted by Lion Brand and maybe also hosted by Alexandra Tavel. I think she's pretty much in charge of it because she designed the first squares. And I think she rounded up the designers, or maybe she's just advertising it, but there's all about it on her site, and I have the link below. So this is the first square. This is all I've done, and I think I showed you this in the last episode. These are 10 by 10 squares, which basically this will get there. The neat thing about this is, I think that's why it's called the Traveling Afghan, it's traveling all over to different designers, and they're going to publish their square directions on their blogs, I suppose, and they're free patterns. So you could totally do this for free, and you could do it with your scrap yarn. So that would be a really neat project for the Scrappy Blanket Make-Along. It's also something that's going to go on all year because these patterns come out like once every 2 weeks or something. The second pattern has already come out, and maybe even the third. But I've just set this aside until I finish that baby blanket, and then I'm going to race to catch up. It was fun to do, and you can choose. There's crochet, a crochet version of this that looks very similar, and this is the knitted version. So if you want to do the crochet blanket, you can, or the knitted one. And one of you had a really cool idea of mixing them up. And I can't remember who said it. I'm going to have to look back in my notes, but mixing up the crochet and the knit because they block to the same size. That is a really cool idea. My brain sucks lately. So my memory was never great, and then I had hormone issues, and now I'm just like, well, I'm not sleeping. So I mean, I'm just lucky I remember my name. So maybe one of you was talking about doing it and mixing them up. Let me know who you are and remind me, and tell me how it's going if you're mixing crochet and knit, because they're free patterns. Now you can buy kits for either kit on the Lion Brand website, and they will give you a compiled the compiled patterns for either crochet or knit. But you don't have to do that. You can even buy their yarn separately if you want different colors. I think their kits are for like a single color blanket. So it's going to be all one color, but the squares are different textures. So that's really interesting. I wanted to mix up my colors though. So I'm just going to pick a different color each time I do one, and eventually sew them all together. They all just unraveled. So the traveling blanket is Alexandra Tavel, and I told y'all I just went through this weird thing where I just wanted to knit all of her designs. A lot of those designs are very beginner friendly. There's not a ton of complexity going on, and maybe that's what drew me to them. I felt like something simple that wouldn't distract me while I'm already thinking of a lot of stuff that's going on around me. Or maybe it was just being intrigued that all of her designs feature Lion Brand yarn, which some people say, you know, they don't really like it. It's a more affordable yarn. It's got a lot of acrylic yarn lines, and you know, people have snobbery about the yarn. I like that idea though. I like the idea of affordable yarns and accessible yarns and making things that look good, not just kind of like odd patterns. I remember thinking when I would see the free patterns on the ball band that I often didn't like the way they looked. And I was like, you know, this could make something that I really do like. I wish they would feature a pattern I enjoy. So I see that more and more now on their website, patterns I would enjoy making, and all of hers look really fun to make. So it's not a blanket, but it's a campfire blanket wrap. So it is a wrap, and I wove in my ends on the wrong side, so you can see my little tails are sticking out. But guys, I wove in my ends as I worked on it. I've shown you this before. It's grown since then. I'm actually mid-row because that's what I do. So here we go. It's Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool, and you can see showing where the color changes are. This would normally be the reverse. I love that. That's what I did with my plaid sweater for my striping. I just enjoy, and actually will try to finish this before my next camping trip, and I will wear it around the campfire. And it's not just because I fall for suggestive advertising. It's also because when I go outdoors and do things like camping, walking around, hiking, or spend a day outdoors with my family, like we recently did at Fredericksburg, I don't like feeling like I have to be really careful with what I wear. And you don't have to be careful with anything. If it's Brooklyn tweed, you can be rough and tumble with it. You have to live your life. But I have that feeling of special, take care of it. And so when I do work with affordable yarns, I find I feel really free. Free to not worry so much. Oh, I don't want to get too close to the fire. I feel free to be relaxed about running yarn along the edge. I didn't pick it up here, and you know, I don't love that, but it's not the end of the world to me. Things like that. There's just a freedom to it, I guess. So it's the same with that scrappy blanket. There's just no wrong. If you like it, it's good. I should feel that way about everything, but I don't. I'm really bad about saving things for special. That's for special. So maybe I get a new dress. I needed a dress, so I never wear dresses. I get it, and then I save it for special. And then I just wear jeans and t-shirts everywhere. So I'm trying not to be that way, unless that's how I really feel comfortable, and then I'm totally going to be that way. So anyway, this is just a useful, very large, almost throw-like wrap, and it's not even halfway. I'm not even halfway done with it, so it's going to be huge. Plus there'll be tassels on it, and then you add your vertical, your vertical stripes will be going this way. Actually, they're the horizontal ones, and you're just running threads through the purl bumps. I love that. I think that's a really easy way to do a plaid, and it makes sense with something that's going to be so kind of carefree knit for me. Another reason it's sort of carefree is that it's made with Lion Brand Fisherman Wool, which is 100% wool, totally gonna last. It's kind of a rustic wool, and this one, I really enjoy this marl. But I don't feel, it's not the end of the world if there's a stain on it or something. I know this is just in my head, but I like the idea of an affordable, easy to replace wool if something happens to it. So anyway, I think it's really neat looking, and I like these earthy colors. Sometimes I want to knit a bright knit, and for a while I really tried to step out of my neutral box, but I've been hungering for basic neutral colors a lot lately, so I'm going to enjoy that. So that's going to be a camping knit. I'm sorry, my skin, my face itches, my eyes itch. I'm having total allergy type symptoms because of, I don't know, maybe where I live. So Winston, you guys talked to me some about fixing it, and one of you had mentioned that you knit it and you did the short rows that make the back longer than the front. that's what I decided I'm going to do. So, you know, I put it on last time. I'm not going to do it today. And it was very oversized, you know, in the upper body, a lot of room in the arms, the armholes. The neck is not really fitted. And that was fine, but then the lower part of it, the body, seemed too small, and definitely it was cinched in by the tighter ribbing for sure. So I decided to undo the ribbing, go ahead and add a little length to it. And it's possible just that my belly, the size of my belly, is making it seem tighter, but I have a feeling it was the ribbing and where it was hitting. So I'm going to make it longer. I want the top and bottom to match, is what I'm saying. If it's going to be oversized, just let it be oversized. The first time I knit this, it was too oversized and the fabric was too holey. I didn't like that. So I ripped it back and I went down a size in the pattern. I also went down a needle size, and I really like the fabric that I've got here. This is the seed stitch version, and if you want to do this, and if you want to do the short row shaping in the back, all you have to do is look at the designer, Jane Richmond, her projects in Ravelry, and she has a seed stitch version of this, and in her project notes she tells you how to do it. So I'm almost to where I want to start the short row shaping and then the ribbing. So I ripped back the ribbing and I've just knit a few rows, and now I'm about ready to do everything. And I'm just gonna I'll have to block this bottom part out maybe to match the top, but since it's Lion Brand Thick and Quick, it's not really gonna block out much. I just want them to kind of match. But I'm hoping I can have this done before our camping trip that's coming up. Because if it's cold, this is the kind of thing I want to be able to wear outdoors and not be worried about it. And I can always throw it in the washer if I need to. So it's one of those wear it and forget about it things, kind of like the Campfire blanket scarf. So that's what I'm going to do. Short rows at the bottom. Now, if I don't like that, I might try some of the other ideas you guys gave me, like a side vents. That's a really good idea. I think Leanne mentioned that, like split the ribbing at the bottom and make side vents. That is another way to kind of open up and widen the body. And I might try that. I might do that, Leanne. I'm going to see how the short row shaping works first, and just making it a little longer. And also my ribbing is not going to be as tight as it was the last time. So Winston was one of those knits I needed to finish to feel like I could responsibly start Jennifer Beals' Badger sweater. The other one I wanted to finish was the Floozy, and I worked on it a little during a movie or two, but it's very slow going, and you know why. 0 needles and fingering weight. It's just tough for me to knit quickly. And I'm going to finish the baby blanket before I get going on that again. But another Alexandra Tavel knit, since I'm talking about her, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about all my details on this. I think I talked about it in the last episode, but then if I put a photo of it on the front of this one, people might think, oh, she's going to talk about that hat. So I want to make sure people know where to find the info. I'm picking spots here off of it. He's got white, little old man dog white hairs. I will have links for everywhere you can find details on this. So Ravelry, and I'm going to put up a blog post about it. I will eventually post on my blog about everything I knit last year. I just got really behind. I had some blog issues, and then life stuff happened. So this is a really neat pattern. It's very simple and classic in shape, and you see there's a little you can have your little gnome point, a little slouchy ease back there, and still have a brim to roll over and keep your ears extra warm. So I enjoyed working on this so much. Let me pull up my details on it. This yarn is also Lion Brand. It's from their LB Merino Camel wool, and it took 2 balls to make it, and this is like the olive colorway, which I really enjoy. It feels really soft. It feels nice. The camel, I suppose, gives it that feeling. When working with it, it did feel different than wool. It felt like it stretched a little more, a little looser to work with. So it wasn't like cotton, which is very stiff, but I did feel like as I knit, my hands were going root and root and kind of slipping with it, and it was easy to make it too loose. So I got about this far on it, and I was like, that looks like it would fit the thing or something. So I ripped back and started over again with size 3 needles, and I think it calls for a size 6, so I went down 3 sizes. The neat thing about this pattern is that if you don't want this little pokey bit, you can basically just figure out how many rows would be your brim, and just delete them from the pattern. So let's just pretend this is where my hat starts and this brim doesn't exist. You know, now you've got a classic beanie shape. Obviously it wouldn't be this thick here, but you know, you're basically just removing an inch or 2 of just kind of deleting it from the pattern, and then you start and, you know, don't knit quite as far, and then start your decreases. So I appreciated the way the decreases were worked. Actually, I'm going to put it on again and let you look at. Actually, I'm going to pull it this way. I don't know if you can see how the decreases look on your head. Anyway, it's just really easy to wear. I also, at first I was making this kind of loose, which probably would have worked, but I have kind of a small head for my body. At least I think I do. Maybe it's just because my shoulders are very square, but I don't want a hat that flops off when the wind blows. And what if I'm like doing something kind of vigorous outside? I like when it stays on, and I mean, don't want it to be so tight it compresses my skull, but just a little fit is nice, and I like the little gnome type top. So it is also, it's sport weight. Also, if you didn't do the extra little empty space at the top, you might not need 2 balls. I'm not quite sure on that, but this is a really nice yarn. It was really nice to use. This is definitely a fancier yarn for Lion Brand, and it wasn't real expensive because they do like 40 or 50% off their kits all the time, and this was a kit that I bought at 40, I think 40% off, maybe 50, and so it was like, I don't know, maybe $10 for the 2 balls of yarn, and the pattern came with it. Now, Alexandra Tavel does put a lot of her patterns on her blog for free, but you've got to deal with all the stuff loading on the page and ads and things. But I do like that you have the ability, if you don't have the resources to buy a bunch of patterns, you do have the ability to work many of her things that way. And then you can always do it in more accessible yarns. So I like that. I appreciate that about her. That hat made me think of something I wanted to show you guys. I haven't gotten to wear a lot of knits this year, right? Because it hasn't even been freezing once here. Not one time has it frozen this winter. I feel like this is the warmest, wettest winter we've had. It's like our garage sweats the floor. It feels mucky and humid all the time. It definitely did today. So I haven't used many knits, but like I have a few things that I just had like thrown in my car, and sometimes I'll get someplace and the weather will change abruptly and I have something warm to wear in the car, and so that's been nice. This one is the Lambton Cowl by Goodnight Day, Tara Lynn Morrison, and you might can tell this is very pilly. It's not the fanciest of yarns, but I really enjoyed it, and here's how I made it work for me. I think this is a free pattern on Ravelry, by the way, and it's a good basic cowl pattern. And it's made for super bulky. I didn't really have super bulky, so I took a bulky yarn and a worsted and I held them together. Now this bulky yarn is something possibly Lion Brand that has acrylic in it. And the other is true wool. And it's a color changing yarn. So I really like the look it gave it. It's a little bit of a speckled look, and these are colors I like. Grays, blues, and greens. And it was just a fun little knit to work on, and it's very cozy, and it doesn't get really cold where I live, so I find that this acrylic actually, it's wool and acrylic, that it actually keeps me just perfect here. So I've had it available. I've used it. Other people have borrowed it at times when we go walking, like when we were hiking the other day. And the other one I threw in the car also happens to be from Tara Lynn. It's her Allura Slouch toque. And it's one that you can also have the little space on top, but you don't have to. You can knit your brim smaller, or if you were freezing, you could even knit your brim and turn it. I like it a little slouchy though. I also liked on this one, I think I extended the ribbing. I liked having a really substantial portion of ribbing. I'm not sure the pattern called for it. I knit another one of these and I color blocked it, so I'm kind of confused on which is which. And this pattern is also available, and it's affordable. It's very affordable on Ravelry. So I took it and I just spaced out little Fair Isle dots with a coordinating yarn. This is all Wool of the Andes bulky. So this is true wool. But it was really cold up on Enchanted Rock, so I was glad to have it. The Fair Isle makes it doubly thick too, because it creates, these strands create kind of a double. Oh my gosh. Let's just forget about that. It makes it doubly warm. And hey, all those unwoven ends, you know, when you smush them up, you've basically got a third layer there. It was knit in a hurry a long time ago, but it's been worn a lot to a lot of soccer games and a lot of outdoor walking the dogs. That's what these kinds of things I'll throw in my car, that's what they're for. When I last minute, I'm like, oh, and it's never cold here, so when it is, I'm never prepared, and I'm a knitter. That's such a shame. So I just wanted to show you guys that. I saw it and I thought, I'm going to talk about these because I've used them quite a bit when it has been cold this last year. Do you guys kind of feel that way about things? It might be about your knitting, it might be about something else, but like you reserve things that you think are good or nice quality or special. You almost don't let yourself enjoy it. You're saving it because it's precious. I noted that about myself a couple of years ago, and I thought, well, I just need to, that's silly. You know, I need to just break through that and use things. But I have found I have a lot of very affordable yarn, like sweater quantities, and that's what I've made a lot of my sweaters out of. But I'm going to use like my rose cardigan kit this year. I have some yarns from, independent dyers and things that I want to use. I have a Pam Allen sweater I want to make with red sock, blue sock yarn. So those are going to be enjoyable, and they're very colorful, which is different than the neutral kick I've been on lately. So what projects that are super accessible have you guys been working on or seeing and you want to work on? Like for me, I was looking at these Alexandra Tavel projects that you can find on her blog, the patterns, and you can find the yarn at your Joann or that kind of thing. Like I just wondered what you guys have been working on like that. Has anything like that caught your eye? Maybe free patterns available on Ravelry. I've seen a few free patterns lately that I found really interesting, and I was surprised they were free. They may have only been free for a few days, you know. Sometimes people will do that. One is Abya Yala, sweater. No, this is still free. It's a color work and a textured sweater by Cecilia Losada, or Losada. I don't know if you can see that well. That's a really interesting top, and the sleeves here make me think a little of the Weekender, the whole yoke, but then there's just texture and then color work. It's a neat combination. Free sweater pattern. Let's see. This one by Cordelia Vore. It's called Archange, or I'm not sure how you say it. Let's see. It's a textured yoke. So that's neat. That's kind of like Zweig. Have you guys found some free patterns or super easy, accessible patterns? Espace Tricot, they often have really good free patterns that come out. I mean, I've never knit one, but this Paloma is one that, and they use so much mohair in their stuff. It makes it look so luxurious and rich, but the truth is I'd probably rarely wear it. I want to show you guys a sweater, a Surrey alpaca sweater that I would like to do with like a fingering weight held with a mohair. And I think that would be like all I need mohair wise. Because I have also the Love Note I want to do in Chasing Rabbits fibers mohair, and then it will be rare that I am able to wear either of those. So those are just some free patterns I've found recently online. So I just wondered what you guys are doing as far as like accessible, easy to find patterns you could recommend to anybody. That's really all I have to talk to you guys about. I wanted to thank you, Dawn. She mentioned that I had a few suggestions from you guys for my big plaid sweater here. You know, I told you that the drapiness of it was messed up by my chain stitch vertical stripes. It made it kind of like a hard, more solid fabric, and it pulled it up too. So as I blocked and I worked on kind of relaxing and stretching out the stripes, I just ended up really stretching out this ribbing, and it kind of is flared and floppy now. So Anna had the suggestion of just unpicking the chain stitch and doing duplicate stitch, which is a great idea, and I might do that, Anna, but I feel like kind of done with this sweater. So what I think I'm going to try first is I'm going to have to cut this. This ribbing is beyond repair. Even if I undo the vertical stripes, I still think it's going to be just too floppy, and I'm going to hate the way it looks. I have an issue with, usually my ribbing is floppy, and I was so proud of how well it fit before adding the stripes. But anyway, you live and you learn. I'm going to cut this off. Since it's a bottom-up sweater, I'm going to cut this off, thread my needle back through, and then I'm going to knit downward and maybe decrease some stitches so that I will have a nice closed in firm ribbing on the bottom, and then just let the top be a little less flexible or a little less drapey. Just let it be the way it is, because if the ribbing is pulled in, I've held it up on me and I've kind of pulled in the ribbing to see. It looks fine. It's fine. So I think I'm just going to do that. Weave in my ends and call it a day. However, Dawn had a great idea, and I do want to knit another one of these in the sport weight. And I probably will not do all of the striping. I'll probably make a less plaid for it, but it's really hard. I like doing stripes. And so I get started and I'm like, well, let's just do a little more. And it's hard to stop myself, but I think that's what I'm going to do. And so when I try the chain stitch, and I may not go with chain stitch for that one, but Dawn had suggested between each vertical stitch do an extra chain stitch. So I chain through one vertical stitch, then an extra, then chain through another vertical stitch. And so every other stitch or every third stitch could be just an extra one. I think that's a really good idea for kind of relaxing this the vertical stripes. That's a good idea, Dawn. I am so thankful that you took the time to tell me that. I guess you're kind of a crochet genius to think of that. So I've got those two ideas to work with, and I will get on that, but it's not my super priority right now. It's going to happen though. I wanted to show you guys something I got. I do the Fruity Knitting Patreon, and they had this like a Patreon discount with Katrinkles. And I know you've seen Katrinkles, like her ornaments that you can thread and you know, use thread and make it look like a knitted sweater. You can kind of design a little ferrule yoke. There's holes and you can run your thread through, colored thread. She's got lots of things like that. She also has buttons, and so they had the discount, and I went ahead and got this from her. I was following Katrinkles before she was doing this on Flickr, actually, and I knew her on Flickr before Ravelry or Instagram. I would just look up knitwear and stuff, and I would see some great patterns she did. What it was back when everybody was had a blog, like a lot of knitters had a blog, and we read each other's blogs, which I really miss that day. I miss that for sure. Because you know how it is. We're just constantly flicking through, and there weren't like commercials everywhere. I'm kind of a little OD'd on the commercials. But anyway, I say, as I plug someone's product, her sock ruler. I've been wanting a sock ruler, and I think this is a really cool idea. Because I did want to make socks for Christmas for some of my family members. And of course my daughter's foot is the same size as mine, so that would be easy. But like my son-in-law, I have no clue, and he doesn't live around me. And then there's my husband with his, you know, basically this from here to here. That's insane. So I'm so glad I have this, and you can just slip it down in your sock, like, and use it as a ruler to measure how long you make the foot. So I was glad to get that. And then I got these little cat buttons, which can be used as buttons, but actually they're so cute. When you actually thread the button in, it looks like you've made a bow tie for the cat. I want to just maybe put them on a hat. Like, for instance, say something like this, you know, you've got your hat on, and then you just have a little button to it, added to it. You know, just on some of my knits here and there. Just kind of a handmade thing. Little extra to add. So I thought that would be kind of cool. So anyway, that was available, and there was the Patreon discount. Do you guys do any Patreon accounts? I support them, and I support Carolyn Henkelius, I think is how you say her name. But she does the Newton yarn. And I actually got some of her, let me see if I can find it. Some of her Newton. I'll show y'all. But see, this is what I do. I show stuff, and then I don't get around to it forever. And so I'm thinking, what's the point? But I'll go ahead and do it. Since I'm plugging these Patreon accounts, I may as well show you this. Also, I haven't gotten a chance to respond yet. Amanda, I saw that you messaged me in Ravelry. I haven't been on Ravelry or anything very much the last week or so. I've just been dealing with some stuff. But I saw that you messaged me, and I noticed Newton was like in the subject of it. So I haven't used it yet, but I want to show you the colors that I got. Newton is kind of like, from what I understand, floatalope. So it's kind of an unspun wool. So it's a little tricky to work with. It smells like animal fur. Okay, sorry. These are the colors that I got. So it's salt. I don't remember these two. But I got these to go together. And what I thought I would do, the main color that I have is this one. I thought that I would just stripe in these and make something sort of like my Ravello. Remember in my mega sweater episode, I showed my Ravello sweater, and the color combo was really great. But it's not as oversized as I would like it now. Like, it does fit me, but I have gained weight since I made it. And also, I kind of like a larger sweater also since I made it. So when you put those two together, I wouldn't mind having a larger one. And one thing I've learned from this, I'm seeing people, there are some people using it for color work, but not really for a textured knit, because it's not got that definition of a twist yarn, yarn with a lot of twist. Here is how I did it, and it's a more fitted sweater. But I was thinking where I have the navy, using this one, and then using these other two to stripe the body. And I have plenty to make it oversized, and I think together they will make a nice, dense fabric. From what I've heard, as you wear it, it does maybe slightly felt a little. It just kind of grips. It grips together. So it's supposed to be a little tricky to get used to using it, but you've seen lots of people, I'm sure, use the Plotalopi and Plotalopi, however you say it. And I see people, you know, work with it, and you just have to be a little careful as you work, but then it does form a good strong fabric. I think that's how this is going to be. You can kind of see the, it's unspun, it's a bit roving-like, and it's a little unpredictably thick and thin. I'm really anxious to try it. I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think I will be really excited with the product, the finished product. So that's something that those sales of this yarn is open to everyone, but when you are, what I found, she's got really sweet videos, and she does some things outdoors, and they're just a nice, calm, really it's a calm conversational type podcast, actually. Kind of what I was shooting for with mine. Well, she talks about her, when her updates go up a little, I think first with her subscribers, so it's just one of the perks of being a subscriber, and she often has coupons or patterns, free patterns or coupons for patterns. But anyway, it's just one of those interesting yarns I'd like to try this year, but I haven't yet, Amanda. Okay, sorry for all the crinkling. I wanted to show one more thing to you guys. This is Courtney Spainhower's new book, Elemental Knits. Now there is a Courtney Spainhower pattern that I've had in my favorites that I've wanted to knit for maybe a couple of years now. So it's just my favorite pullover, colorwork yoke pullover. Really nice, and there you can see this one on the homepage that another knitter did. Really nice. So she designed that. I still want to make it, but I wanted to get this book of hers, Elemental Knits, and the purpose of the book is wardrobe basics for the entire year that you can wear. So there's some summer weight projects, spring type projects, and then warmer weight. This right here, this stole, is just a really long oval. It's an oval instead of a pie shaped shawl. It's oval shaped and wraps around you. It almost looks like a colorwork type rug, but it's, you know, a stole, and it's really cool. Let me see if I can find what type of yarn you use for this. There's just a few things I want to show you. That's called Quilo Worsted. So it's going to be nice and warm. Here you see her wearing it like a stole. Some other knits in here is Gloria, the shawl. It's the Greek goddess of spring. Gloria, the shawl. It's a traditional shawl shape. I couldn't see myself wearing it like a scarf, like I normally do. But it really works with this like kind of a built-in collar to it. And then the way the lace stitch is placed, it's really beautiful. There's a summer weight project in here that I so want to make. Everything in here I would totally enjoy making, but a few really stood out. Like this tank, it's called Idalia. It's got a little keyhole in the front and the back. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah. It's just really nice. So that's like a linen blend, and it's brioche, so I'm interested in trying that. And I think that it is DK. I believe I could use like Cotton, and no, it's fingering weight. Okay. Lindy chain. I could use Lindy chain for that, and I think I have probably enough since it is a cropped sweater. Ooh, let's see what else in here. I tend to gravitate toward the clothing. Hazan is a dolman, sort of poncho, swancho, and it's knit in the Surrey alpaca, so that really looks luxurious to wear, and I enjoyed these details on the sleeve, but look at the beading on the elbows. It's kind of got some, I don't know, that beading there adds a touch of, what would you say, elegance to it? Or is it almost like studs? Is it almost kind of giving it a tough look? I'm not sure. There's JORAH, which is a textured cardigan. That looks very vintage to me. And it's brioche segments that kind of don't match up, or they're broken. They're like broken segments. Lumi is something I would really enjoy. Now it has the large cables that I'm seeing in a lot of projects that I want to make. One is Amber from Alina Schneider, but the thing about this one is the fit. It is a more fitted sweater and a very straight fit, but not very oversized. And I kind of like this fit if I were to go to more fitted. It's also worsted weight, and so it's the kind of thing you may have in your stash. As far as like a cardigan that's nice that you could wear, like a lot of my cardigans are like for home wear, and they're like super pilly. This is Eira. I just think that closure is special, and it gives it a refined look. So you've got your texture, your cables going on, but then that closure has almost a tuxedo kind of vest look to it. That's a really neat detail. Everything in here is great. This Demetria is a raglan sweater. It's a mosaic slip stitch, and look at this. Gosh, this yarn is sport weight, and they're using Woolfolk Snow. No wonder. That's really fine Ovis Merino. Of course, it looks luxurious, but isn't it beautiful? Now see, when I looked at this on Ravelry, when I was deciding if I wanted this book, I couldn't tell how nice this was until holding the book and looking at it. I wonder how many things are that way. I really don't know how good something is until I see it up close. This is Nico, and it's a kind of an oversized summer top. I would totally enjoy wearing this because it doesn't cling to your body when you're hot, and it has a deep V-neck back. I'm going to see if I can show you this back without giving away pattern information. Can you see the back here? It's just a tiny sliver of a photo. But it can, you know, show off your racerback tank or your bralette or something. Okay, I've shown you all of my big favorites, but I really like everything in this book, and I could talk about all of them. I'm not going to. So goals for 2020. That's one of them. I have so many things I say I'm going to do. I should quit telling you guys I want to do this because I'm not going to end up doing it. I'm going to end up doing something else at the last minute. There's too much flashing in front of me all the time. I need to just pick some projects and stick with them. A little bit of that commercialism of the knitting has affected me that way. Last year I kind of got bogged down and didn't finish many things due to like repetitive stress, injury, and just the busyness of the year. But this year, so far so good. And after I get these blankets done, the 2 gifts, the others are going to be ongoing all year. But I think at the end of the year, I know I'll have my traveling Afghan done, but maybe even my granny stripe blanket will be done. It's definitely relaxing and fun to work on, and like that's one I can watch a show while I work on. I don't have to look down if it's wool. Now with the Brava, I had to look constantly or I would end up splitting the strand, and it was a big mess. So anyway, so I'm not going to ask you anything to tell me this week, because last time, which was just a week ago, that I posted a podcast, I had a question for you and I haven't received a lot of answers. I'm going to see if I get some more ideas from you guys. I really appreciate the answers I've gotten, and maybe some more of you will have ideas. You know, just today I was texting with my daughter and her husband. They live near Austin, and recently they have moved the homeless population from under overpasses to an area, a field, and it's cold at night. It's a field the size of 3 football fields. That's how big the homeless camp is in Austin, which is just getting worse and worse. Smaller towns might not be having that kind of problem, but these areas where real estate investors are moving in and buying stuff up, there's so many empty houses there, and the rent is skyrocketing, and there's so many homeless people. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking, this is a perfect example of something we could be doing to help the wanderer, you know. I thought about the border, all those people still waiting to try to get into our country. That's the wanderer, the poor wanderer, because really they left everything. They just have what's on their back. And then like spending yourself on the hungry, there's the feeding of people who are hungry. There's also the oppressed, you know, there's people who are mistreated. Earlier this last year, we talked about, you know, racism and taking a stand against it. That's one way of helping the oppressed. Another is people who are beat down by life, society, or maybe their relatives, stepping in for them and encouraging or lifting them up. I thought about how what a difference it makes when someone has a family that sort of takes them in and helps them as they're trying to change their lifestyle from whatever it was. They just need kind of shelter, like maybe actual shelter, but also just maybe a family or some friends to gather around them and support them as they learned to view life completely different. There's just so many things, and so there might be causes you guys donate to. There might be things you just get out and do. My sister was telling me about a friend of hers that they just go out and they like cook a meal, and the family just goes out and offers it in containers that can be reused to homeless people if they want it. And so they've got food, they've got a reusable container they can use for more food or something else. And this family doesn't even bother with finding an organization to be part of. They just go out and do it, kids and all. I thought that was pretty cool, because you don't have to rely on some organized group if you know where people are in need. I also know there's a local group that helps like women who are pregnant and they want to keep their baby, but they can't afford anything. And they give total support to them for a while. And advice and maybe job counseling and family help counseling, and even provide for them after the baby is born. Things like that, you know, that's just helping someone who's beat down under burdens. So keep giving me ideas. I'm interested in what you're doing. My eyes are turning outward more. And there's always donating. Totally doable, but what if we don't have a lot to give? There's other things we can do, and some of you have already listed some in the comments, so I'm anxious to see what everyone else's ideas are. It can be something you've done or something you would like to do, and I'm coming up with some ideas too, and I'll talk about that more in the next episode. As we are disappointed with the settlement that we're being offered for the damages on our home, I was really frustrated with the woman I spoke to about appealing it. And then I thought, you know what? I believe that I'm in God's hands, and I don't have to get this upset about it. I wasn't being rude to her, but I felt angry inside, and it didn't feel good. It's not good to carry that kind of anger. And I thought, you know, it's in God's hands. This isn't the final say. There's a little more that can be done, and maybe, and definitely if my husband and I do the work ourselves, we can probably make that work. It's very incongruous to amounts a lot of people I know have received for pre-existing damage that wasn't even from the explosion, and they didn't like try to rip off this company. The adjusters just came in and started writing things down. Even if they said, no, that was there before, they're like, never mind, we're just doing it. So, you know, they're getting these crazy amounts, and meanwhile, we just want what our contractor said it would take to fix the house. But it's not all said and done, and don't worry about us, we're okay. But I'm extra aware, as we talked about, this field of people moved from an overpass where at least they had some shelter to now a field out in the open. And I thought about women with their kids. How safe is it there? You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable sleeping with hundreds of people out in a field with my children exposed, you know. There was just a lot I thought about, and I thought, why would I be angry about my situation? And again, my focus turned away from where I am to other people and what I can do to help them. So anyway, it was kind of in line with what we were talking about. That's why I mention it. It also might jog your mind in some things you've thought about doing. So let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.